Live, the Truth Podcast from Harmonics Media Center. Your host, Jen, and the co-hosts out here. We got Big John, we got Carson, we got Nikki G. And as the host, what's awesome today is that we're going to get a perspective of someone who's been around the camp with me now a year, almost day in and day out, more than 5 days a week. We're going to get that perspective. And that's your very own Nikki G Swagger. What's up, Nikki G?
Hey, I'm super blessed.
Are you excited or are you nervous?
I'm excited. You know, it's kind of been crazy how a whole year went by. We just, kind of elaborated on that. And time is just a weird thing. It's either it's slow and you're kind of regretful or like in the slump, or it's just like jet speed. And I think like rolling with you, no matter what, you're kind of in that. I feel like even my car has jet fuel in it.
You're moving into it. For you guys out there, I'm streaming this live on my Instagram, but I want you guys to go to Linktree. We're gonna post this stuff up on Facebook. Geez, I've got a brain lock today. See that? That's my brain's not working.
YouTube, the Truth Podcast.
Yeah, YouTube, the Truth Podcast.
It's also on Spotify right now.
Absolutely. Too. We also got Elijah here visiting us from California. He's in the background. He's just there kind of checking it out. He's been on there. Winston, what's up? How's your week been?
It's been crazy, man. Just getting after it. Still working on my house projects coming to an end. So that's good. And balancing Titan and just keep on trucking, man. I could say I had an eventful weekend of entertainment. As you know, the fights were this weekend. There was a race this weekend. Olympia was this weekend. So I had a fun time watching all of that stuff. But
I missed out on all that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. So other than that, everything's been going good as normal.
Who took Olympia?
Chris Bumstead. So it was actually his three-peat. He's won it 3 times in a row already.
Hey, that's freaking awesome.
He's a freaking monster, man.
Yeah. How about you, Big John? How was your week?
Just busy with my son. Football season's going. We only have 3 more games left in the regular season, then we have to make the playoffs. So.
Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Aiden's freaking killing it,
Yeah,
man.
he's putting that work in. Yeah. So I'm going to step into this, Nikki. I'm going to hit you hard. I want the truth, because we're on the Truth Podcast. We can't have the mamby-pamby story, you know what I mean? So I think Nikki, I asked you these questions before in the past, but I want you to reflect. Think about when you were coming in, what's the big difference? So all these questions, I want you to think, what's the big difference of when you were in and then now a year later? Are they the same or are they different? And I think I want you to kind of really reflect on that when you think about it, right? A year ago, has the question stay the same as I said, why did you want to join my camp? Day one.
It's kind of funny because when you're speaking about that now, I kind of remember when we first became friends and I kind of knew about harmonics and I would Google it and I couldn't really get a gist of who you were. I just knew you're just this crazy, superhuman man. And it was almost like a vault in a perspective. It was I want to see in, but you can't see in if you're in the camp. So I always kind of saw from the foreground. And from that moment of the transition of becoming a part of the camp, it was a lot of self-reflecting too, because then there was a lot of questioning. I had no idea what you were about. I didn't really know your personality. I didn't know just certain things that I know now. So now looking into it, it's crazy, even just how far I've came as a human. My whole life is completely different. I can't even vacuum the same. I can't even, my daily tasks and how I elaborate, how I'm going to separate my day is nothing like what I did before. Before I met you, every day was a Saturday for me. And I kind of lived in a life where I was mood to moment and I was just navigating life with my intentions and my desires. But it was kind of driving where I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I was going to get there. And when I started in the camp, there was a lot of stuff I had to face. I had to face a lot of skeletons. I had to really ask myself, what are your patterns? What are your flaws? What can you work on? Where are you why didn't I become a mogul in my own business? All these stuff reflected because it was very, I don't know, it's kind of weird. You're superhuman. So I'm shit, he does it this way. And it's so crazy. It was kind of if I had a bunch of fishing lines, but I didn't know what I was fishing with. I had a bunch of fishing lines, but I didn't know where I put them up. So my whole life I was just I knew I was going places, but I didn't really have a grasp on it. And then I look at you and I've never met an individual at your capacity that has a complete grasp of every single aspect in your life. Like every single aspect. Like this guy's so crazy. Like he knows where everything's at, down to like, are we low on certain supplies, like everything that you don't even think of. And then I look at people and I look at their money management and I'm like, well, no wonder why he's who he is, because you actually know exactly what you have, where everything's at and where everything's going. And I think that's so crazy because I didn't realize how important that was. I've made a lot of money, but I didn't have the full grip of it. And you like literally have a chokehold on your life, whether it's financial, emotional, mental, relationships, friendships, like everything is so methodically thought out that I used to think I was a methodical thinker. And then I go back to like, oh, I'm a hippie because that's what he tells me. But I was so flow like water. And this guy's like putting concrete in the dams, you know what I mean? And everything's just headed in a direction and water isn't seeping out is really a good metaphor for it.
You know, kind of funny, it's kind of things of something Carson used to say in the past, and he'd be like, the general doesn't pay full price for anything. And I think when you really see me from the outside in, people just think I just dump money, like the hell with it, I'm gonna pay full price for that. And I'm always looking for the best deal no matter what, because at the end of the day, I've told you this story, and I've told people, is my grandfather would say, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much you attain, how much you're able to keep and how much you're able to use and move forward, just like seeds, right? I think I blew your mind on that story when we're going to the U Nation about the bubble gum, right?
Yeah,
the bubble gum.
I can't get over it. I don't know if he's heard it before.
No, I want you to share the story of the bubble gum story.
So we're going to Ute Nation. I mean, I'm super blessed. I don't think I realized like how of a privilege it is to get Jack to come to a job site with us, you know, because there's a whole different energy that happens when he's there. Like there's no really a problem, even if there's a problem, everything is like fixable. It's almost like you kind of have like, I don't know, I didn't never really have like the strong parental type of thing, but when Jack's at a project, it's so effortless and it's really cool to see him delegate. So we were out, were we in the Ute Nation? We're out in the Ute Nation and we're coming back, and it's always my chance to kind of get story time from Jack. And he told me about his story as a kid of bubble gum, and you know, like the baseball bubble gum, I can't remember what it's called, and it comes in little strands. And he would tell me that he was only able to go to the store, and I might have butchered this story, but he was only able to go to a store a certain amount of times, so he knew how to calculate how much bubble gum he had to spread it until the next time he goes. But this guy didn't just spread his bubble gum, he created a reserve of his bubble gum in a Ziploc bag and would probably counted it. Now that I know him, he would even know if they were mismeasured on the cuts. This is how crazy this guy is. And he would literally put reserve of this bubble gum away, and he just worked through life like that. Ate what he could, and he would probably not eat gum to be able to save that gum. And at the end of the whole gum story, he had a gallon-size bubble gum bag of reserved, and probably still had a brand new bag and a half of bubble gum. And when he told me that story, it struck me. I'm like, this all makes sense. Since a child, he was able to take his resources and utilize them properly with never taking what he wanted, but what he needed, and being able to save after he saved.
And you know, the crazy part of that story that I didn't tell you is when it all fruitioned that way. I got to the point where I filled the 1 gallon bag. Then I had the small sandwich bags. And then what I was able to do when I was buying the gum, it got to the point where I was actually storing the factory sealed gum behind the reserve. Right? And so I had all this excess of bubble gum, and I had to figure out, well, you know what's going to expire. And what I learned from that whole thing is you're right, it's because I had to travel, but I always had the resource of bubble gum. And then there was a time period there where that bubble gum got stuffed for some reason, and the price inflated. And then so people were like, I want some of that gum. So I was going to break my factory. I broke it in smaller portions, and I was selling it at school. And I was just, this is your cost, no negotiations, I don't care. And so I was collecting 50-cent pieces, right? And that was what I really loved. And so I was collecting the Kennedys, and that was something that was big for me. So I think, Nikki, what you've seen is that ultimately what makes me so dangerous is my organization skills. Would you say that?
Absolutely. Even to just when you helped me, you know, just where even I came into the picture, I was, like I said, a hippie. I guess you could say I just didn't live in that structured world. to having like such a structure that I never seen before. It was like a foreign world for me. It really was, because this guy is like a train. No matter what, whether he's not feeling good, whether his schedule's booked, no matter what it is, he's consistent. Like I've never seen him. It's just like a consistent flow. So coming in, gosh, it's crazy that a year has gone by. I can't believe that, of how I see it. The binder thing was so monumental for me, to literally put a binder in of, this is my life. This is what my bills are. This is what I make. This is what I need to, like my monsters. I created a monster book. I had to face so many monsters this year. But when I put it in the book, the monster was no longer a monster. It was like just the long highway that I had to get through, no matter what was there, whether I crossed, deer, whatever it was in the highway. It was no longer that, because it was all in one thing that I could hold. And so with the binder, and then I look at how he runs his business and like everything, it all makes sense. Like if Jack needs to go back to any type of empirical data, he has it where he can hold it in his hand and reference to it, instead of people like me, when he goes to ask me a question about 6 months ago, what was the measurement in Suite C? And I'm like, I start frantically freaking out, but this guy's like just a database. It's all collective data. And so being able to have control of your life like that is just, I don't know, it's crazy. No wonder why you are where you are.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a tough situation, even for my mind. I said, like, I call it the mental clutter, but you can't document it. I think the best thing I could have done when I was an executive is when they sent me to Franklin Covey School. And Franklin Covey's no longer around. They have this bullshit app, right? But it doesn't work the same. I don't care. When you write something down and commit it, it just makes sense. You see these boards out here. The crowd can't see the boards, but I have everything written down on our task list that's inside our database. It's inside the CRMs. But when I come in here, I can actually look and make adjustments, right? It's like playbooks. That's why in football, you see the people in the playbooks. I mean, you're in there, John. You see it. It's on the whiteboard. The playbook's there. You have to be able to visualize. I'm still a firm believer of the binders and paper is still going to outpower no matter what's out. There's something out there called OneNote, which is amazing. But for me, committing those binders, you're able to put a strategic plan. And when someone calls you, I'm not like, oh, guess what? My computer froze. I can go right to that tab and have a financial discussion with somebody, and they're not pissed off, right? I'm able to answer all their questions. So I like to collect that, and I think that's one of the most important things. I don't know what's being taught in school, John. You can jump in on this one. I don't know if this, back when I was in elementary and high school, when you first came in, they said to bring in your notebook, and in your notebook you would write the date, the time that your class was, and then you would take your notes, and then you'd write what the assignments were. Do you guys still tell students to do that, or is that still around?
No, that's still very much a strategy, and sort of like the new sort of the new thing of the day. They called Avid notebooks, and it's still an organizational skill that they set up so that, and literally they want the kids to have one big notebook, which I'm not a big proponent of because it's just so hard to lug around. But I've always believed in them having notebooks, or them having that type of organization, just mainly so that they can use it as a study tool, because like in 23 years of teaching, I shift from, I didn't want them to have to memorize anything. I wanted them to be able to use it as a resource. So, but if they put in the work, then it was there for them as a tool, So, but no, it's still very much an organizational tool. It's nice now. So I see my son each night. It's automated to the point to where like all of his assignments are in Google Classroom. So he's like, do I have homework? And he pulls up his assignment list. And from that part, it's a nice organizational set up. So it's not like, oh, did I write down this assignment, or did I remember this assignment? Now digitally it's set up, but you can still have that organizational structure.
Winston, do you use anything like that, an organization on your side, or how do you organize your day or your tasks or your life?
Basically what I do is I'm not so structured as of course Jack is. I mean, the guy's an engineer. I'm not. But what I do is I basically start every day knowing what I need to accomplish, and I give myself until probably around 10 o'clock because I want to get everything done as fast and efficient as possible. And that's what I do. I just go through my checklist and make sure, because as Jack knows, I'm super forgetful as a person too. I have ADHD. So
is your checklist digital or is it written?
It's mental.
It's mental.
I don't write nothing down.
Wow. I give you kudos because Jack knows I'll forget what we just talked
I
about.
mean, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to sit
No,
here
it's cool to
and,
know,
say I write
Jack
everything down or
honestly
anything like that.
He could work like that because how he collects the data and when he can pull it out of his system just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. Like, you probably are good at that.
There's a Seinfeld episode about that where Kramer says he has a mental clock or a mental alarm.
I do.
I
I
clicked it, and then he was supposed to wake up Jerry to wake up the guy for the marathon, and he's all, I hit snooze.
Yeah,
I think
everything
that-
for me is mental. I just keep it all in my head.
That will work for a while, but once a lot of shit starts to hit the fan, you're managing multiple things, you'll have to write down something because the mental data will come in. What I've seen is, like with me, I deal with high level, I call it, could be a destruction. You see the meetings we have, right? One mistake, and if I don't come in, like today, I'm running down to the bank, and all of a sudden, I had a 1:30 meeting. I was like, oh shit. And I'm a 9:40 at the bank. At that moment, I jumped the hell out, got here, and I was there immediately. Got lucky I drove in. But like for me, the calendar invite, I have to put the calendar stuff in to alert me. And then the thing about it is, like, the data I can pull out of my head, but I have to have something there. And so I do approach the whole engineering aspect. And then in our work, it's so complex, you have to have revision after revision. So you can go back to a revision that you did a year ago for the client. So you can say, well, where was I there? And they're always going to use you as a repository, right? On to my second question, Nikki. Before you came to my camp, what did you expect? Like, what did you expect before you came in? Now that you have to see like what you saw before and after, I want you to be honest. Do you think it was, going to be lands and glitz? And then you're like,
yeah, it's funny because I was really thinking about it the other day. And like, I'm getting, like, a lot of people don't have the privilege to be mentored by a successful person, two, by a very mentally health person. That's big because I met millionaires that are losing their tops, right?
yeah.
So I've seen it all. So like, and then to take a guy with your money paradigm is massive, okay? And then your multi-venture of everything you do. So there was a lot of elements that make you just different from everybody. But I was taking collective stuff that I learned through the years. And in my mind, this is Lambo Jack. He's the celebrity. This guy's got swag, there's watches. And in my mind, there was a side of me that was like, this is going to be like boot camp. And then there was a side of me that we're going to be like, oh, we're ditching work today. We're going on a 100-mile cruise and our hair's blowing in the wind, right? So like, because you can't help that. That's TV, that's social media.
Yeah.
And so when I walked in, I always try, one of the biggest things I've learned is not to lead with like expectations, right? So I'm like trying to filter my consciousness of like, don't put a perception of you that I don't know. So in my first, like, at the doorway, I'm still like, oh, this is going to be like Disneyland.
Right.
As I walk in the doorway, I'm like, holy shit, it's like Intel, right? Because there's just so much going on, all this like stuff that I was learning and everything. But the capacity of it, like, it's so crazy. And then I'm in the door and I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot of work. It really is. Because one, I'm still trying to balance my life and my businesses and everything that am here today. I'm also trying to use my educational purpose to become like a sailor on the boat, right? And then I'm over here trying to still keep my conscious being and like who I am, individuality, but also it was just such an abrupt thing where it's like you literally work hard, and then we'll play hard. And sometimes the playing hard is working hard. Yeah. And so it's kind of confusing, because everybody asks me, because I try to keep like my friendship and everything with Jack. Like, I don't sit there like, I don't sit there like, oh my gosh, I'm here with Jack. Like, I always ask him when we go to the man cave, I always pull out my fake mic and I tell him, how does it feel? That's like my favorite question, because at the end of the day, what does it feel like to be a millionaire? What does it feel like to be a successful realtor, a teacher? It's a feeling. It's really depends what you do with it, right? So that's what I always tell them, like, how does it feel? And in the end of where I feel like it is now, it's like I'm in the Marines or something, and I'm in like this base. I'm always having to become a better self daily. I'm having to ask myself questions of like, am I utilizing my time correctly? I don't sit there and be like, Jack, let's go for a ride in the car. But when he takes me, I'm like a kid on the freaking, like, it's exciting for me. I'm a car girl. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get to go in the car. Have I been in all his cars? I have not been in all his cars. Have I played with all the toys? I have not, but I get to see it and I get to see the excitement, because at the end of the day, like, when I look at it, like what it takes to just maintain one car, I don't have that dedication and capacity. I don't think I'm meant for a Lamborghini. I'm more of like, give me a beat up truck that I can wrap down the road that has a perfect transmission and an engine, right?
And it runs.
But then also you hit a pocket where my desires are also leveling up, right?
Mhm.
So I went from my truck that you guys all seen, which was this whole time I thought I had a Roush truck. It turns out that they just put the logo on it. So I was living the filtered life. I was living the filtered life. But now I'm like, I got in the G-Wagon. I'm like, you know what? I think I could do the G-Wagon. Like, it's fast. I can climb shit. You know, I probably wouldn't. But it's kind of funny because then also as you level up, like I kind of dance in a duality. Me, I'm fine living on a garden in a little house in a little truck.
Yeah.
And then the other side's like, why not have the best of both worlds? So it's kind of like this dance that I have to do. You've been there. You've been on both sides.
Let me ask you this, and since we're kind of on this topic, I always like to get someone else's perspective that's been around Jack. For all the people that think, oh, you know, if I just shake his hand, I'm gonna be successful, or if I be around him or have coffee with him, I'm just all of a sudden gonna succeed. What do you have to say to the people that think that? Because of course now, yes, he's guided you to the track, but do you think that it's true? Like if Jack touches you, you're instantly going to succeed, or does he have something deeper that you still have to go in and apply yourself? Because we've talked about it all the time where everyone's like, oh yeah, we're just going to shake Jack's hand, you know, and be successful. And the reality of it is what I have always said is being in the environment of Jack is what gets you to be hungry and to will, but you still have to have the willingness to go, because the way this guy lives, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the guy gets up early. He's like, the water needs to be, you know, this temperature, and the glass needs to be squeegeed and this and that, and the towels better be fresh and warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what would you have to say to the kids that think that and what the reality is?
At the end of the day, you can be given all of the, you know, the GPS coordinates, everything, but if you don't do it, you'll never get there. When I first, I think it was the first day I came in, I was in the suite and he gave me my first thing and he told me to read the story about the little
red hen.
And when I read that story, I'm like, this all made sense. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like Jack's his own moving thing, whether we're involved with him or not, Jack is here to win. Mm-hmm. And it ain't even the money this guy's chasing. He's here to win and he's here to inspire, and he's here, like there's certain elements that I learned. And me being in here, I get to work with Jack on the daily. I literally am so blessed to, even if it's just whatever it is, it's the environment. But at the end of the day, it's what I do. Yeah. And it's true, because people think even me just being in the roof of Harmonics, that I live like this extravagant life and I have like a wallet the size of the table and all this stuff. And really it's the amount of work that you put in at the end of the day. And it's funny because I think it's social media that really fucks us up like that. Is they think that they have a friend like this, like even your friends probably have it. I mean, you've been on with the nice cars, like you've had your own, and they think that just being in your circle, that it's like a handover or hand-me-down. Yeah. And it's really about your own work ethic. Like you can tell me how to be the best real estate person, and if I don't go out there and I don't do the proper steps and I don't do the work, it doesn't even mean nothing. Yeah. And for everyone watching too, and that's kind of why I like to hear that perspective, because a lot of the younger generation, I feel, thinks that, right? And then they come to meet Jack and he's like, yeah, go dig this trench over here. And they're like, what? I thought we are going to ride in your car and like, you know, make like 10 grand today or doing nothing. He does his Mr. Miyagi. Wax on, wax off. Exactly. And that's the only thing that I can say. And Jack said it too, that people will be like, oh yeah, you know, we want this and we want to make $1 million in 10 years and blah, 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 and this and that. And it's like, okay, well,
you know, and Jack will kind of go through things and say, well, what have you done what's your plan? Do you have anything? He's not just going to take someone who's, we've said it before, like a C team player and going to get them to the NBA. You still have to have the willingness, but with his guidance, if you're willing to learn from him, it does take you to the next level. So that's why I always like to hear from other individuals, because people were like, oh, you were just around him. And, you know, I was like, shoot, I wish it just poofed and done it. I mean, if it wasn't for him, what I'll say is I took advantage of, you know, if he'd take me to events, right? And I'd meet people and I'd go out of my way and network, and he's helped me. I always say it, I wouldn't be where I am today without him putting me in the positions. But you still have to have the willingness to go out and take advantage of what he has to offer to you if you're fortunate enough to be mentored by him. And it's not easy to be mentored by him because, like I say, you got to have, there are times where, you know, I'd have to pack like 4 pairs of clothes in my car if I were going with him, because we'd be digging a trench. And then he's like, all right, we got a, you know, night ball we got to go to. And I'm like, dude, I freaking got ripped clothes on. I got dirt in my hair. You know what I mean? So it's cool to hear that side from you as well. And for everyone listening, nothing is easy, but when you have a mentor in your life to help guide you, it does help if you take advantage of what he's willing to teach.
You know, it's crazy. The 3 people that come to my mind that actually, you know, put a lot of time mentoring, you know, it's Saul, Carson, you, Nikki, and all you have this is 3 changes of clothes. And we have a shower now here. We have you know, we have multiple showers. There was no showers back then when Winston and Saul
there was no showers. Now there's showers, you know what I mean?
And when Saul was around, it was really shit. Holy crap. Right? There was nothing. Right? You look at that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's really about, and I'm glad that perspective you said, it's about, at the end of the day, I can coach you. But if you're not shooting those shots on your own, and you're not putting the shit that I teach you over and over upon yourself, you will never get nothing done, right? Yeah. This leads me into this question. And I want the facts. I don't give a shit, right? Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm the 1 to 10 guy, right? How would you rate my leadership skills?
Oh my gosh. Out of every leader I've ever had, no one compares to you for several reasons. One, like, you really focus on my positive attributes. You never shut me down for what I do wrong. Like, you've thrown so much shit at me, and some of them I'm just not good at. You know, I'm not a good admin person. Let's get real. Like, I'm more of a designer, but you never shunned me for things done. Like, we were at a job site and I unplugged something that I shouldn't have unplugged. And my upbringing, the whole world was ending for me. And he was just very nonchalant. The energy remained calm, and he fixed it. And then the world didn't end. And I'm like, wow, I've never experienced that before. And when we're even in here on the board, just the way he controls the space in the room, we cannot go off the bridge. Like, the boat will shake, and then he'll be like, the boat's shaking, this is a shit show, and then it goes back into order. Mm-hmm. And as a leader, I have to give you a 10 because you don't judge me. And I think that is where I've had downfalls with leaders. I've had incredible people, but then they judge you either on your attire, the car you're driving, maybe your success in career. And I feel like you give everybody, no matter if you're talking to another CEO, another successful person, you give everybody the same starting grade. It's like we get an A, and it's if we keep it or not. It's really how I feel.
That's exactly how I work. I give you an A, and if you keep it, you work yourself down from there. And I give everyone the same level of respect. You've been able to be around me, and I think that's freaked you out, and how I'm just a very kind person, right? Mm-hmm. I'm very strict, but I'm very kind. Yeah. Like, you're gonna walk out of here sometimes feeling like you want to jump off the bridge because I'm hardcore. Yeah. Like, I don't pull off the metal, right? Like, I'm never gonna kid glove you. I'm not going to judge you, but I'm hardcore, right?
So I've been yelled at.
Don't start talking smack.
I said I was going to take 10 years, but I got yelled at in the year. If we could pull that podcast up, when I said 10 years of not being yelled at, I got yelled at.
I think me and Miss B were like, I don't know.
It's crazy. Just to show the type of leader you are. Being in your club and being one of your mentees, there's a lot of pressure because of everybody I see, right? Like, you're the newest and the closest to me. Mm-hmm. And then I look at Saul and I'm like, holy shit, like, this dude's bred as a superhuman, but he literally creates mini superhumans, like a sub superhuman. And when I see like 3, and Saul's just worth ethic. It's crazy. But then I see Jack tell me the same thing he told Saul, and it's just so crazy of how powerful the leadership is, that the people he's teaching are able to carry on that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now, and I've always been a mentor and I've always been a life coach. I've been more of like, I guess you could say root grass kind of deal. But now even I've seen my mentorship shift, because I'm taking this wisdom and I'm re-pushing it out. And so there's pressure.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how much pressure it is for me to, one, be in the camp? Like, you were kind of here in the camp on like the YM side and the fun side. Like, you got the fun camp. I get like the 1 day a week of fun camp, and the rest of the camp is like literally boot camp. Okay, so I'm not just like in harmonics. I'm in like visual and maintenance. I'm doing all the like podcast, and then it's like the podcast stuff is all fun, but the money and the bread and the cooking comes from harmonics, so it don't even matter. You still got to do that, but that's first, and it's just like this crazy thing. So then imagine my pressure. Saul was just in the harmonics camp, and he got to be like the little brother, best friend, and he got, I think, the best of it all, right? And with me, there's so much pressure, because I always ask myself, because there's days where I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm going to go back to avocado bread.
Yeah.
I'm going to be vegan, and I'm going to go sit in the RV in my mountains and live my best life, right? But then I'm going to be like, Jack, you got a contract. I ran out of money, or whatever the things may be, right? But what if I leave the camp? This is my question I ask myself. What if I leave the camp and I don't make it to the level of everybody else? What if I go to the camp and I completely fail? Like, those are questions I'm always raw with myself. Like, I always tell myself, like, are you really doing the best you can? Like, are you really succeeding? Are you really making movement? And like, what if I fail? So then there's that fire where, like, there's days where I'm just like I wake up every morning early. So like, I already got him on that. He knows I'm up early. But there's days where I'm like, I just want to go for a fucking cruise. Like, I just want to drive until I don't drive no more. And then I could just, that's like a heartbeat inside me. Like, the gorilla's probably getting in his truck. He's probably already there. I gotta beat him. And so there's like this thumping inside of me where it's like a reminder, like, no, like, I can do this, right? Like, I can become this. And from now, where I'm at, I have a 2021 vehicle that I don't have to look out and see if my rims are falling off. My lug nuts aren't loose. My freaking spark plugs weren't popping out. And like, I can show up and know that I'm going to get here. And that was so big. Like, I don't think people realize how much like that can impact your life, of like just a vehicle. Then to have a place where I can be in, like, I had all this equipment for years in boxes. So then I have a space. Like, all these fundamentals of when you guys first saw me walk into this podcast to now is like a whole other animal. Like, I'm not even the same person. I'm really not. Like, even to like my repetition, like in the morning, by the time I even get in my car, I've already accomplished all kinds of stuff. And then when I get here, you just don't know what's happening. There could be a deadline, but Jack's like, you need to go here, and I'm over here, and then Saul's pulling me here, and I'm over there, and I'm carrying ladders, and I'm on here, I'm drilling holes and answering emails and texting and trying to coordinate this stuff. And it's like, I became like a different animal, but I'm still get to be my authentic self. They still let me do my creativity. They still let me develop, but I'm not the same person. Even people that meet me, they're like, Nikki, you've changed a lot. And I was just like, I just don't have time for bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm more cautious about who I give my time to. For the first time in my life, when people text me, I tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot take that on. I'm really extremely busy. And before, I'm never too busy for you. And now I'm like, hell no, you could have paid me enough.
Yeah. You're like, you know what? The general's going to hit me with another task. It's going to be brutal. But you know what, even Nick, you tell him you're not on the Obama phone, right?
I'm not on the Obama phone. I have an iPhone 12 with the sickest camera.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a hold of me. It was always dead, and it was never working.
And it was funny because, you know, the kind of leader that I am, and this is what people understand, this is why I can't just invest in people, because that doesn't work for me. When I saw Nikki, I saw those needs. Like, you got to imagine, I'm a car dude and I'm an engineer, right? So I know the cars are fucked up. I knew that the exhaust was pasted on there. I knew that the stuff, when she opened up the hood, that it was there. But never once did I tell you, hey, that's not what you have, right?
Yeah, no, you would go in that day and you could tell you're like, yeah, it's badass. And
Yeah,
it was just like,
but
this person
I'll
has-
always be happy
Yeah.
for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's something who my nature is, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't care. I'm gonna be happy with you. I think I had an employee once. His car's all screwed up, and he bought me a Mr. Goodbar, and he's like, you know what freaks me out? When I'm driving from the office with you, you're in my car and it's a shithole. It's hot, and you're there and you're eating this Hershey bar, and you're cracking jokes, and we're gonna go work at your house. And he's like, how do you always? It doesn't matter. And I said, it's not the experience to me. It's the mindset and who I am. The stuff is just an added value. Trust me. There's a big difference when I drive the Ford Fusion or the Bentley. But it's not going to change my happiness. It's just going to advance it, right? It's like a better cup. And this leads me into this question. And it kind of what is the biggest lesson you have learned so far?
The biggest lesson that I had no grip on my actual life. That I really just was just kind of like if I had like a garage that you just throw shit in there, but you know it's in there and you don't really know it's in there. But eventually if you pull everything out, you'll see it. In my life, I didn't have any grasp of it.
Did you know that before?
I think I was a person that ran from my stuff. I ran from my problems. I was just like, if there was any confrontation, I would just leave. Like even when it came down to like taxes, certain like governmental stuff. Like Jack's like, oh, I'm like, well, I'm
we got her covered now. Just so you guys all know, we got her covered. She's legit.
But
now.
when he was like, well, what is it? And I couldn't answer that question. I realized like, how the fuck am I going to get my life together if I don't even know what's fucked up in it?
Mm-hmm.
It was really what it was.
Yeah.
And so now I have an overview of really what it is. Like no fucking filter life, no cookie cutting. Like I can't pretend to be something I'm not. Like literally I had no grasp on my life. It wasn't that I was a bad driver.
No.
It wasn't that I've done epic shit in my life. I could die tomorrow and be completely happy. But as far as my potential, I was like at 10%. As far as like my consciousness, I would say about 50. As far as my perseverance and dedication and structure, I had no structure, like whatsoever. Like it was such a rude awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And then it made sense because I couldn't understand how all these years I have gone to Millionaire Mind seminars. I worked with Tony Robbins. I got to work with Les Brown. I went to all these entrepreneur things. I was killing it in my career. I was the top of my class, in college, and I did all this stuff. But why wasn't my results a reflectiveness of that?
Right.
And then I see friends that are killing it, doing the same little thing over and over again, and they're just living their best life, right? And so when Jack tells me it isn't sexy, it's not fast, it's not slow, it's just consistent. And I didn't have consistency in my life. I didn't have consistency in my determination. There was days that I was feeling good and I'd kill the game, and there was days that I felt like shit and I'd just run away.
So what do you think the switch was? Of course, Jack had a huge impact, but what specifically made you, because I mean, you said I worked with Tony Robbins, who's arguably one of the biggest influencers to ever live, arguably. Les Brown, same thing. And what was it that really changed for you to, I guess, realize all those certain things, right? Because you were already in the realm of extremely successful people. So what was it? What was that spark, I guess, that turned it around for you?
The proof it really was is I could hear all this stuff and I could see these people and I could sit down at a table next to them and I could leave like inspired and I could have this feeling. But when you would leave the building,
it was
you would like
back
look
to
at
reality.
Earth and you'd be like, okay, well, what do I do?
Right.
Like, what do I do next?
It's like in sports, you can sit there and watch drills on YouTube all day long, and you can listen to people motivate you. You can see plays, but unless you and it ties into even education. That's why so many people were frustrated with just doing school from home and in front of a computer screen. It makes a difference to have a person in the room,
right?
That in-person learning. It's statistically proven that it works a lot better. I mean, I could show my son things versus me getting out on the grass on 6 a.m. with him and seeing.
Of course, and that's what. And I bring that up because I knew what the answer was, but it's just to show and say what an excellent mentor and leader that he is. Because unlike Les Brown or Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn, whoever you want to name, they're not going to take the time to invest in someone as much time as he does. And that's what the turning point was for you, because you are around these people. And when you're around them, you know, once or twice and you know, go do all the fun stuff, but you don't see what's behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Then it's almost like it's not real, right? Or like, oh yeah, that's just the way he lives. But I don't know if I lost my words. I don't know if realistically I can achieve this, because you don't really know what their day-to-day basis is like. And with him, he'll show you what it's like.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wow, no wonder it is really hard to actually achieve success. And if you want to do it, you got to be consistent and diligent at it.
But the second I walked in here, it was immediately an evaluation. I watched his body language. I watched like what his patterns were. I was even sneaking up, like when I'd go in his office, like, what is he reading? Like, what does this guy do? Because I was so curious. But one thing that he taught me is he led by example. Like he would literally go dig the hole with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like a tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lead you, show you, set the standard, and then it's up to you to do the rest,
Yeah.
you know? And all the other mentors, it's all talk and no action.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's all action and very few talk. And so it was crazy to have that, such a spectrum of that, you know?
Yeah.
That's such a good question, because it's so important that people know that, you know, we could sit there and collect all this data all day, which I did for 15 years.
Or you can fill your bookshelves or go to all these seminars. And that's the connection of how important it is to have a mentor.
And
absolutely.
He reminds me, you know what, if I really put it into perspective, if you get a counselor, they're always just going to give you enough to make you feel good and to bring you back.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like the healer that gets to the core, completely fixes the problem, so it's not like a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the type of leader that like Jack is. It's a real fix and not a Band-Aid to bring you back.
I think one of the things that I attained that to is the years of martial arts and the masters that I train with. And it's not really it's not a Western thing. It's more of a Eastern thing. And I think it's by teaching you so you don't get hurt. Where most people want you to see you get hurt and fall, and I don't believe in that crap. Right? I'm going to teach you how to evade stuff, and so that you don't get hurt, and then I'm going to hold you accountable, and then I'm going to give you enough fear, but you don't have a broken nose.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm trying to say? And I think that's what I do very different. I mean, Elijah's saying in the background, when I helped him have me pull weeds, right now I'm doing my yard, but for the longest time I never got to it. But they would be out there 2 against 1, I'd be kicking their ass, and it wasn't because I had more energy. It's that I knew how to apply myself, that consistent shit over and over. He'd be looking over and saying, how come this guy didn't get tired? And I remember one of the things, you'd be like, holy crap, but it's that consistency. And now he's in California doing good stuff. And that's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to break down one last thing here, okay? Now that you've been around me and the whole team, what would you say is the ultimate observation of, like, would you say the key to my success? And you kind of answered it, but what do you think, if you summed it up, what do you think it is?
Consistency.
Consistency, huh?
Consistency.
It's not sexy.
No matter what.
It's not sexy, right? It's not about I have the greatest tool in the world.
It's really true.
Right.
I'll have like a list the size of a paper, and this dude has like a whole Rolodex of tasks. And for some reason, he gets it done before I even finish like 5 of mine. It's because of even the time in between it. Consistency.
Now I'm going to hit you with this. I don't got it in front of you, but I hope you remember. Of the 10 rules, of the General's 10 rules, you need to see them? Which is the one that means the most, that really reflects to you? Do we got that poster out here?
Grab it. It's in that.
Brian took the last one on the table.
You take it?
Bottom.
Yeah.
Pause for effect.
I used to have them memorized. I don't know if everybody knows this, but before I even read this, before I decided to leave my last job, I got to come to the man cave, and Jack gave me a card. And every day I read this on my desk, and I'm like, I'm going to get the guts to quit my job. And I used to read this
I'm
every
putting it
day.
out there for the crowd to see here. Out of the 10 rules, Nikki, which is the one for you that really, really, really identifies with you?
It's funny because it used to be a different one, but my one now is undercommit and overdeliver.
Yeah, that one's huge. That's one of my favorites too.
Because it's just even stuff that I face on the daily. Like it's really, it's funny because Jack, is like a very mental, neurological trainer.
Mhm.
Like when I told him I could put the please do not touch cars on, he never asked me for it. But every time we'd go in the man cave, he would glance over at that piece of paper, and it was like a subliminal message. And I told him months ago, I had the equipment, it was plugged in, like it was really like I committed to something and I never delivered, right? So like what I've been learning now is I just show up with stuff. Like, here's the thing, because I'm not saying it no more. And it was like the biggest thing that I had to face is like not over committing and under delivering. Now I under commit and over deliver, because now it's just, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day, you know? And it's just like, I really like, that's one of my strongest attributes. I just want to say that the older one that used to be my favorite is be clear and honest with people. Trust me, we will have to choose our self-interest over anyone's else. So be clear. I didn't used to be so transparent. And I think that was my thing, is I was very like a broad thing about it. And transparency is just, I think, the key to one of the many keys to Jack's success.
Guys, you know, what a freaking amazing podcast. We're out here. The crew's back. The truth is back. Episode 2. We had one of our very own Nikki Swagger in, and what I'm going to do is we're going to be literally interviewing every single person on the Truth podcast, you know, years past. And guys, I hope you really enjoyed this, and we're just bringing it to you. And this one was powerful. Out there listening, you guys have got to listen to this. You know where to go. It's up here. Get to it. We're out. The truth is out.
See you guys next week.
Outstanding. Yeah, check out Linktree. We have it scrolling there on the bottom. Linktree Lambo Jack SV.